The sailors rescued a woman who had survived a shipwreck, but after that, terrible things began to happen on their submarine. Let's find out if having a woman on board really is a bad omen. This story takes place in the summer of 1943, during World War II. A plane flies over the Atlantic Ocean. It's running out of fuel, and the pilots send out a distress signal. The message is received by the American military, who immediately decide to rescue their comrades. A submarine called Tiger Shark surfaces in the Atlantic. The American soldiers spot a sail in the distance. Judging by the markings, it belongs to the British. The crew quickly organizes a rescue operation and brings the survivors aboard. After that, the submarine dives again to avoid being detected by the Germans. The Tiger Shark dives just in time. Moments later, a two-deck destroyer appears nearby. That's definitely not an ally. The submarine has to descend even deeper to avoid a naval battle with a much stronger opponent. The crew soon learns that they've rescued 3 British survivors, 2 men and 1 woman. The news lifts everyone's spirits, especially the fact that there's finally a real woman on board. However, not all the sailors are pleased. Some of them believe in an old seafaring superstition that having a woman on a ship brings bad luck. A sailor named Douglas Odell learns that the survivor's name is Claire Page. The woman explains that she worked as a nurse aboard the British hospital ship Fort James, which carried around 300 patients and 70 crew members. 2 days ago, the ship was struck by a torpedo. They are the only ones who made it out alive. Another survivor, Kingsley, mentions he saw a submarine before the attack, presumably a German one. Lieutenant Bryce asks Claire to limit her contact with the crew, since some of them are highly superstitious. Odell thinks over Claire's story. The fact that the enemy submarine fired only a single torpedo seems strange to him. In addition, he notices how Claire tends to the other surviving man, quietly telling him not to speak. That's very suspicious. Suddenly, the same destroyer shows up near the American submarine. It looks like they couldn't shake it off after all. The crew shuts down the engines and all onboard systems. The enemy sonar mustn't detect them. Everyone freezes, trying not to make a sound. At that moment, the gramophone starts playing loudly in the galley. They turn it off immediately, but it's already too late. The enemy has detected the submarine and dropped a series of depth charges. The Tiger Shark takes minor damage from the blast, but soon the Americans manage to slip away from the destroyer. The sailors are convinced that it's all Claire's fault. After all, everyone knows that a woman on board brings bad luck. Lieutenant Bryce is shown a pair of trousers that belong to one of the rescued men. It's a German uniform, which means he's German. Bryce grabs his pistol and a pair of handcuffs and storms into the cabin. Claire is sitting beside the patient. The man admits that he's a German prisoner of war, Bernhard Schillings. Claire begs the Americans to respect the Geneva Conventions and spare his life, but Schillings suddenly grabs a scalpel, and at that moment, Bryce pulls the trigger. The lieutenant orders Claire to be placed under guard because she lied to him and put the entire crew in danger. That night, the gramophone starts playing again. Surprisingly, it seems to turn on by itself. Furious, Bryce smashes it against the table. Claire watches him with growing fear. The sailors start whispering that there's a saboteur on board. It's hard to believe. Claire hears a voice whispering to her, "Run!" before it's too late. She switches on the light and screams in terror. The body of the dead German prisoner has been placed in her cabin. A cruel joke. The men laugh, but Claire is certain she really heard someone's voice. Bryce orders the crew to throw Schilling's body overboard. Meanwhile, a sailor named Stumbo also hears a voice, telling him to turn the submarine around. What on earth is happening on this boat? The Tiger Shark prepares to surface. Claire is allowed to leave her cabin for a short while. She notices a book lying on the floor outside Bryce's cabin. It's The Tragedies of Shakespeare. The woman steps into the lieutenant's cabin to return the book and spots the patrol log on his desk. Curious, she starts reading. It turns out that the submarine's previous commander was Captain Winters. Bryce took over just a few days ago. Claire hears that eerie voice again and hopes it's just a hallucination. The Tiger Shark tries to surface once more, but it's impossible, as the enemy destroyer is still patrolling nearby. There's nowhere left to hide. The American submarine dives even deeper until it finally reaches the ocean floor. Bryce comes to Claire's cabin and tells her that a few days earlier, their submarine had been pursuing a German vessel and fired a torpedo at it. The Tiger Shark surfaced to confirm that the enemy ship had gone down. Captain Winters went up on deck to collect a few fragments from the wreck as souvenirs, but at that very moment, the submarine struck something. The impact was so strong that Winters fell overboard, hit his head, and sank into the depths. His body was never recovered. After their conversation, Bryce runs into Lieutenant Loomis. The sailor asks what he told Claire. Bryce replies, "Now she knows the legend." Soon after, the Tiger Shark encounters a German minesweeper. Its grappling hooks tear into one of the ballast tanks, causing partial flooding. The American submarine narrowly escapes again, but now, every time they surface, they'll leave behind an oil slick, making it easy for the enemy to track them. An emergency repair is essential. Lieutenant Bryce orders the sailors Stumbo, Odell, Coors, and the radio operator Wally to fix the damage immediately. They put on their diving suits and descend into the open ocean, where they come face to face with enormous fish, yet continue their work despite the danger. Odell works alongside Coors. He is also deeply curious about the death of Captain Winters. The strange thing is that the only witnesses to that incident were Coors, Bryce, and Loomis. They were the ones who claimed that the submarine had struck something, causing Winters to fall overboard. But Odell clearly remembers there was no collision at all. Coors confesses that they lied to the rest of the crew. In reality, the sailors had spotted survivors floating in the water. Winters ordered his men to eliminate them. Coors, Bryce, and Loomis refused to obey. A heated argument broke out, turning into a fight. Winters slipped, hit his head, and fell into the sea. The sailors decided never to tell anyone what had truly happened, to protect the captain's reputation. Right after this confession, Coors sees the ghost of Winters. He stumbles, hits his head on a metal beam, falls into the water, and dies. What a tragic accident. Now only 3 repairmen remain. They spot Coors' body drifting in the water and panic. Terrified, they return to the submarine and report what happened. Shaken and trembling, they claim someone outside is sending them a message in Morse code. The sailors decode the signal. It's a single word: back. Odell begs the lieutenant to turn back to the nearest port. Claire agrees. She's convinced there's a poltergeist on board. Lieutenant Bryce gives the order to surface. He decides they'll head for the nearest base. But soon, things get even stranger. The Tiger Shark unexpectedly changes course. The crew tries to take control of the wheel, but it won't budge. The submarine is steering itself in the opposite direction. Some of the sailors begin to panic. They believe the vessel has gone off course because of the damage from enemy depth charges. Others whisper that they've already died and turned into ghosts. Odell realizes the sub is heading straight back to the same spot where they sank the German ship just a few days ago. The problem is, strange noises keep echoing from outside the hull, chilling everyone to the bone. To regain control, they'll have to repair the steering mechanism. That's a dangerous job, since it's located next to a large tank of hydrogen. And as you know, hydrogen is highly flammable. As the crew begins to pressurize the system, the submarine suddenly suffers power and communication failures. The men grow tense and start snapping at each other. Strange static noises come through the radio. Then we witness something truly horrifying. A hydrogen leak occurs on board. A single stray spark from a cigarette butt triggers a massive explosion, sending almost the entire crew to the afterlife. What's left of their bodies is a gruesome sight. Claire finds a wounded sailor and tries to help him, but the man whispers that he doesn't deserve help, especially not from her. The only survivors are Claire and Kingsley, saved from the British ship, Lieutenant Bryce, and sailors Odell, Wally, Stumbo, and Loomis. Loomis is the last to leave the compartment. He glances into a mirror and sees the ghostly reflection of Captain Winters staring back at him. Loomis panics, fights off his crewmates, and decides to abandon the submarine immediately. Without using any equipment, he climbs out into the open water, impales himself on one of the outer rods, and meets a grim end. On board the Tiger Shark, the power goes out completely, and the temperature keeps dropping. More and more men see the ghost of their dead captain. Claire demands that Lieutenant Bryce finally tell her what really happened to Winters. Bryce refuses to answer. Stumbo loses his last shred of hope and Claire slaps the man hard across the face to make him come to his senses. Anger is better than despair. Odell and Claire find Wally, who has almost lost his mind from fear. The sailor is convinced that Winters has returned as a ghost, and now wants to turn his ship into a ghost ship so that they'll be together forever. While the crew struggles to repair the submarine and change its course, Claire enters the captain's quarters and reads the ship's log again. She's looking for the entries describing the attack on the German vessel. It turns out that after the strike, Captain Winters, Bryce, Coors, and Loomis went up to the deck. They saw the ship burning and dozens of people floundering in the water. Claire flips through a reference book, trying to understand what ships and submarines from different nations actually look like. Then, suddenly, she realizes what really happened. Grabbing several torn-out pages, the woman rushes to Odell. She tells him the truth. The ship they sank wasn't German at all. It was the British vessel Fort James, the very ship where she had served as a nurse. When Winters, Loomis, Coors, and Bryce climbed onto the deck, they were horrified to discover the terrible mistake they had made. Winters wanted to rescue the survivors, but Loomis, Coors, and Bryce knew that a court-martial awaited them. To save themselves, they turned on their captain and buried the truth with him. The surviving crew aboard the Tiger Shark manually triggers the ballast release mechanism in a desperate attempt to surface. The effort costs Kingsley his life, but the submarine finally begins to rise. Using the radar, the crew picks up a signal from the nearby British ship Archimedes and tries to make radio contact. Suddenly, Bryce appears and fires his pistol into the radio equipment. He refuses to take responsibility for his fatal mistake. Claire quietly climbs up to the deck and tries to signal the British ship with a flashlight. Lieutenant Bryce shows up behind her, threatening to shoot. Claire tells the man that he'll have to get rid of them all if he wants to hide the truth. Bryce fires wildly into the air, then, overcome with guilt, turns the gun on himself. Odell rushes to the surface and fires into the air to draw Archimedes' attention. The British ship responds with a signal rocket and moves in to rescue them. As dawn breaks, Claire, Odell, Wally, and Stumbo stand on the deck of Archimedes. They watch as the Tiger Shark slowly sinks beneath the waves. It seems that the submarine has finally become a ghost and joined the rest of the lost ships.